Okay, a friend of mine asked me to do this video to broaden people's view on history. He shared a video with me where one of our brother is discussing how some Africans in the past were able to rule some part of Europe, and it's something that I'm going to just look into right now and share other views. For me, first thing first, I want to say that as an African descent, if somebody who descend from Africa, the least thing you should know as a young man or a young woman is your history. I tell people that history is a compass that shows us where we are coming from and points us to where we are going. If you don't know your history, you don't know where you are coming from and you don't know where you are going. So you don't have the clear view of where you are going. That's why you must know your history, and not just know history, but know the right history. Because what most of the time things are being represented out there is not really history, but his story. As Napoleon Bonaparte, who was one of the greatest warlords, say that history is a lie that is being agreed upon. So there is no really real history. What we have most time are people representing their own view of what took place in a certain geographical location at a certain time. In other words, you have to wear your thinking cap while reading history to know who you are, right? So, before I go on to share my view on this, watch this video.
There came a time in 1506, after we lost power in Spain. The Africans ruled Spain from 711. We were calling ourselves Moors, M-A-U-E-R-S, then M-O-O-R-S. From 711 until 1485, 774 years, when we built and brought into Europe the university system, building the University of Salamanca, S-A-L-A-M-A-N-C-A, in Spain, a copy of the University of Genève from ancient Ghana, which was equally a copy of the University of Sankore in Tombouctou, which the French later called Timbuktu. Now, look, if you want to read it, read Stanley Lane Poole's The Moors in Spain, written in 1887, or Alejandro Macaziza. Read his book in Spanish, The Moors in Spain, and said that even the bath was introduced by those Africans.
So the whole idea is very simple. There are some of our brothers in the ancient time from Arab and some part of Northern Africa known as the Berbers, and today they call the Nubia. They traveled to Europe in a place called Spain and Portugal and ruled them for a very long time. They were called the Moors. So those guys had the superior intelligence and understanding of how society is being governed. They governed and helped to develop Europe of that particular place in those days. Most African people don't know this. And so what I say is that know your history so that you will have faith in what you can do for yourself. Now, I want to share something far more than that. And that is the fact that every human being on this planet came from Africa. 300, 400,000 years ago, there was nothing like a white man, a brown man, a yellow man. What we had was a black complexion, a black person. The reason is that because there's something called the Eve gene in our women. The Eve gene resides in only black women. What I mean is that it has the capacity to mutate, to give birth to any type of offspring. A black man and a black woman can marry and give offspring to a white girl or a white boy. They can marry and give offspring to a brown person or a yellow person. Now, a white man and a white woman cannot give offspring to a black person or any other type of being. It's only black people that have this gene resided in them. That's why we have this type of human beings around the world today. Now, 200,000 years ago, the black people known as the Neanderthals sailed out of Africa and occupy what we know today as Europe and other part of Asian countries. And what happened is there was a change in the pigmentation of their skin because of the ecology of their geographical location. They weren't white when they got there. They were black people. In fact, there was a research done by some of the scientists in China that discovered that the ancient inhabitants of China in the ancient days were black people. So it was the ecology of the system that changed their skin. So what this does is for you to know that these people are relatively your younger brothers. It doesn't matter what people think about it. So they are your brothers, and you must know that and know it for a fact. And when you read this kind of history, what that does is to broaden your thinking faculty, to realize that you came from the lineage of kings and queens that have done things that are actually great, then why are you like this? When you read history, you kind of ask yourself that black people should be in the forefront when it comes to science and technology. We started it. If you don't know it for sure that black people were the first people who came up with philosophy, mathematics, chemistry, physics, whatever. It was taken out of Africa, given to the Europeans. They refined it and brought it back for us. In the ancient time, we are told by Herodotus that when he came down to Africa to study, he saw people with woolly hair and black skin. Herodotus is regarded as the first historian. Now, he's not the first historian, but let's say he's the first recorded historian, for the fact that if Egypt was developed at that moment, or at that point, to that level that he could come to Egypt to learn, in other words, they are going to have some historians there. He came to learn in Egyptian mystic school. He wasn't not only the person. There was other people like Pythagoras, Socrates, Thales of Menestheus, and several of them. They came to Africa to learn, and none of them, for a fact, graduated from African mystic schools, because those days it takes you 40 years to become a graduate and be given a certificate to go and practice whatever discipline you have learned. None of them were able to practice. It was Pythagoras who stayed here for 16 or 23 good years. I can't recall exactly the number. And before he left, other people stayed like 5, 4, 3, 4, 6, 20, 16, whatever, and left. He was the only person that stayed here for like 23 years before he left. They all learned under black people, black teachers, black tutors, black professors. You must have this first hand of history so that you know where you are coming from. In case you don't know, now you go to the United Kingdom, there's a place called London that was founded by a black emperor who was an emperor in the olden days. His name is Septuseverus. He was a black emperor that founded London. That's not represented. If you go to the Wikipedia page, what you see is a sculpture of a white man. That's misrepresentation. That's not necessarily who the founder of London was. It was a black emperor. The same thing goes to the man who wrote Element. Euclid, the second most translated book in human history, was a book titled Element. It was a mathematical book. Now, if you go to the page of Wikipedia, what you see is a European man represented there. But that could not be the truth, because it carries the years 2,300 years. Now, we know for a fact that based on history, that nobody can draw and know the exact picture of anybody that existed before Jesus. He's 2,300 years ago. Jesus was younger than him. In other words, we should know Jesus if we're able to know him. In other words, we didn't know nobody then. So that was just a representation of a painter or a sculptor in Europe, maybe probably took himself and draw and place it there. Another place I'm going to point a hand to is that Jesus was a black man. If you don't know that, know it today. The Bible was written in Ethiopia. It was written by black people. You must have a first hand of your history, so that when people are debating, you know where you stand. Let nobody say you things that are not true. And when you understand this, your entire life will change. That is why it is good to study history, because it's a compass that tells you where you are coming from and tells you where you are going. So each time you go through my video, you see me lamenting that black people should not be at the back, but be there with all of them. It simply means that we all possess equal mental faculty. Whatever they can do, you can do. Whatever they can create, you can create. You must understand that even if the slavery you think about that were carried against us, our black people also enslaved white people. Even black Americans had some slaves. Maybe you go and check somebody like Thomas Sowell. He writes about that. But many people don't know all of those things. What you need to understand is that whatever has happened to you have happened to other people. But you can't cage yourself in complaint and whining and groaning about what has happened in the past. What you need to is to learn from history and pace your track in a fast way that can position you for success and position your people for success, and continually press on to publish things that will retain and remain and create your own new cultures for the people to learn from. That's why I'm an advocate and a catalyst for intellectual property. I say people should read, they should write, they should put in something out there, because most of our people back home right now are doing great things. They're going to probably die with it because they are not going to record it. The reason why Europe is the way it is because they have been recording for a very long time. We stopped recording along the way. I'm from the Igbo race, right? We have a writing called the Insipidus. There's no Igbo person that knows what is an Insipidus. In other words, our ancestors had some sort of developed mentality or developed faculty that could write. They wrote something that they understood within themselves. But we, the present Igbo occupants, don't know what that means because we left it along the way. So what happened to black people and not knowing the things they have done in the world is because they didn't continue their education. That's why I'm saying go back to the library, go back to the laboratory. There lies our freedom. There is nothing you can see anywhere in the world that black people cannot do. If anybody can build a car, build machine, do whatever, you can do it. If they enslaved you, you enslaved them in the past. You must forgive and carry on. That's one thing. And you must stop anything that has to do with slaving you this time again. History does not permit that. We should not permit that because yes, happened once, ours will not happen twice. We are the future. You must understand that. So I just decided to share this little view so that you get a glimpse of the reality of existence out there, out of just what you are being told in the classroom that mostly about the history of what happened in the 60s and the 70s, which is inspiring, earthly conflict and wars and there and because that's what you're taught in school most of the time. They tell you how Europe underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodman, and they share that to young people who gain admission every time they bombard them to read it. Great, but also tell them what happened 200,000 years ago, 300,000 years ago, 400,000 years ago. Like, know for sure that the creation of mankind is more than 6,000 years ago. That is, as it is written. Now, the Bible said the way it's created 6,000 years old, it was not created 6,000 years ago. And you can't read that literally. There is secret embedded in writing of the Bible. It is written in poetic language. Now, you can say this and mean another thing. That's why some theological philosophers and thinkers have arrived to the point that when you discuss about Big Bang and discuss about the creation of Adam and Eve, they are mean the same thing. The problem is the ignorance of the man to synthesize both and understand these two things. So you have to upgrade yourself by learning and continuously learning, not just learning, but learning from history and knowing where you are coming from. The moment you know your history, the whole veils in your eye will fall off and you will start seeing clearly. So your people are people that came from a very powerful, great system that built things. Imagine Pyramid of Egypt. To today, Banfu's modern science, nobody can say that this is exactly what was built and this is what was used to build that Pyramid of Egypt. It's still Banfu's modern science. In the ancient days, our people could embalm a dead body that could last for 6,000 years without decay. That's a superior practice of medicine and a superior practice of architecture and then physics and so many of them. That's the understanding of nature. Physics is the study of nature. So today we are not studying those things deeply because we seems to breach, like we cut along the way and left other people to do what we are supposed to do for ourselves. And today you see people that say they bring you this one, they bring you that one. No, you are the initiator of everything. The initiator of religion, the initiator of education. You are the initiator of all these things. The problem is that the people who wrote history, the modern history, misrepresented it in a way that you were put off the mark. What you need to do is to retrace your steps and put yourself there. Now, if you check it right now, you go and listen to the scientists, you find out that there's a new idea in the past, maybe in the 18th and the 19th century, called the monogenesis and the polygenesis. The monogenesis says that every human being came from a single species or a single place. But then the polygenesis says that we all came from a different geographical location. For instance, the Africans were born in Africa. They came to Africa. They were created by God in Africa or created by whatever the scientists are calling the Big Bang Theory. The same thing to the Europeans and the same thing to the Asians. And that has been a debate within the philosophers and the scientists for a very long time, for more than 2 centuries plus now. And then recently, some modern science have come to arrive that where you find the oldest remnant of fossil bones in Africa is about 2.3 million years ago, called the Nusi. In other words, they have found out that every species on this planet moved away from Africa to every other place in this world. What you have to understand clearly is that the most powerful aspect of this, their study, is the monogenesis. It's not the polygenesis. The white people came from us. They didn't fall, nobody just created them. The yellow man came from us. And truth be told, the Chinese did their research and found out that their ancient people were blacks. If you go right now, one of the most highly revered, respected Russian writer historically is the man called Alexander Pushkin. He was a black man and he is regarded and referred as the greatest Russian writer. Most of you don't know. If you hear about the papyrus discovered in Moscow, it wasn't written by the people of Moscow. It was excavated in Moscow. It was brought from Africa by merchants who came to Africa and went to Moscow. So many things has been presented in the face of history, and you must know how to read history Know the ones to take and know the ones not to take. Know that history is a lie agreed upon, and it is said clearly that the hunter will always win in history when it comes to hunting, until the day that the lions learn to write its own history. It is a time for African people to start writing their own history and to have a clear perspective of what the African people have done in the past. Maybe you go read the works of Cheikh Diop. He's one of the most powerful scientists in the past who took time, years, several decades to research on this, and finding that pharaohs in the ancient time were mostly black people. There were some of them who came from the Max Planck University in the past and took some Egyptian mummies and did a test on that and found out that most of them are almost pure black people. So when you hear that the designs in Egypt as it is today were by the Arabs, that's wrong. It was designed by people of my, like your color, black people. And they tell you that it is designed by the Anunnakis and the Draco. That those things are trying to represent it in a way that you don't have the sense of worth that you can build something better than that. It wasn't designed by any alien from anywhere in the space. It was human being like you and I, black people, black ancestors that did those things right there. Let them don't fool you. Go back and study mathematics, physics, biology, chemistry, and represent it in a way that can shape the culture of mankind in a new way today. So those things are things you need to know. The least thing you must know as a black person in this world is your history, not just history of what happened in the 60s. Because if you go through across the continent of Africa, we abuse, killing and shooting ourselves because misrepresentation of history. What are we fighting? Ethnic diversity is here everywhere, but what we are fighting is ethnic superiority. I'm superior, I'm Igbo, you are Yoruba, you are Zulu, you are Madinka, you are this mentality, inferior mentality. Our ancestors knew themselves. They were black people. They didn't kill themselves that way. So we need to return to where we are coming from. You can't do that when you are ignorant. As Marcus Garvey will say, that intelligence rules the world while the ignorant carries the burden. All of the burden in Africa weighs on ignorance. We need to lift ourselves from ignorance. Study, read to show thyself approved in order for you not to become an ignorant person. When you go to the table, when people are discussing about ideas, you will be able to contribute something silently. If I go to Europe, America today, and I meet any white man, it tells me that black man is less. He can't do that because I know where I'm coming from. I know who I am. That is how Malcolm X learned. He stayed in the prison and studied almost every history of black people he could get his hands on. And that changed his perspective and perception about reality of the history of black people and awakened his genius. He became one of the most intelligent person ever existed in the black history. That's what you need to do. You must wake up and learn as though your life depends on it. And truth, I must tell you, your life depends on learning. So go right now and start to learn your history. Not just learn history, but learn real deep history of black people. There are so many other things that I could point right now, but I don't want to go ahead and do that. I just wanted to, walk you through and get you to understand these things. Everywhere you see, anybody in the world today, the person that inhabited that place first is a black man. That's the point of this. And what that says is you need to have this understanding that whatever anybody is doing anywhere in the world, you can do it. In fact, there was a scientific research done in the past, both on animals and human beings. They find out that if you test animals like a pig, they have like 4 eaters in their body. You find out that other human beings, like the Europeans, who are the white people, the brown people, they had 6 eaters. We are the only people that had 9 eaters in our body. 9 eater beings. So if that does not give you the understanding that you can do anything, you can create anything, you can shape any culture, you can transform any society, let that dawn on you that if nobody is better than you, all the mental faculties in the world are almost the same. We are called the same. The difference is our priority. When you know your history, you regain your power. When you don't know your history, you remain inferior. So go back right now and study your history deeply enough beyond what happened in the 60s and colonialism, and find the deep reality that you yourself enslaved people in the past. You yourself ruled people in the past. You yourself was an emperor sometimes. When you have this understanding, you say to yourself, no problem of what is happening today, I'm going to change it right now. And once you do that, the whole system changes. I've been saying this thing time and time again. I said the whole world has not come to unite. It's because they are waiting for black people to come to be on par with the rest of the world. The day that the black people realizes their power and they start performing as the Europeans, performing as the Asians, the whole world will begin to discuss the idea of uniting the entire humanity to one, because we have been one from the beginning, and we are going to return to wherever we come from as one people. Let this dawn on you. So if you find this interesting, all I want you to do is go ahead and share this video with your family and friends, and I'm going to see you in another video. I remain Captain Africa. Ad Astra.